For Module 3.2, we are computing the amortization of long-term liabilities using the effective interest rate method. So the effective interest rate method is a tad more complicated than the straight line, but not too terribly bad. You just have to multiply on each step, and you have to pay attention to what you're multiplying to make sure you don't make a mistake. But so it's a little more complex than straight line, but it's not difficult once it's broke down. But the first part is amortization is the process of separating the principal and interest in the loan payments over the life of the loan. So in this example down here, we have assume a borrower acquired a 5-year, $10,000 loan from a bank. She will repay the loan with 5 equal payments at the end of the year for the next 5 years. The bank's required interest rate is an annual rate of 12%. So we start with the beginning amount of what she borrowed, $10,000. They gave us the payments. Those are calculated out. We're not really getting into the how you calculate the payments. They give us them all for the problems. So we just plug those in. We do have to calculate the interest. So the interest, we take the beginning balance and we multiply it by the interest rate. And then what goes to principal is the payment minus what went to interest. The rest goes to principal. And then to find out what the ending balance is, we take our beginning balance of the loan minus what went to principal, and we get the ending balance. Then we take that ending balance down to the beginning of year 2. And we take the payment, which is all filled in. We know what the payments are going to be. We now calculate the interest on the new beginning balance. So interest rate times beginning balance, so $8,426.07 times 12% gave us this interest rate. And then what went to principal, take the payment minus the interest, and that's what went to principal. And we end up, the ending balance is the beginning balance minus what went to principal, gives us the ending balance. Then we take that ending balance down to the next year, and so on and so on. It's very repetitive. It's just making sure that you're pulling from the right columns, multiplying times the right columns, and stuff like that. It's easy to make a simple mistake, just because you're kind of like clipping through it so fast. But it's not overly complicated. That gives us an example, and we're not actually going to do those because we go over them in the homework. So for bond amortization is the process of separating the principal and interest in the loan payments over the life of the bond. So when bonds are amortized, the premium or the discount, if we paid over the amount of the bond or under the amount of the bond, we amortize it. Discounts increase the interest expense because remember we paid $100,000 bond, people paid $95,000 for it because it wasn't as appealing to them. So we took a loss of $5,000, and it actually, that discount increases our interest expense. Premiums, on the other hand, they overpaid us for the bond. They gave us $105,000 for a $100,000 loan. That actually will decrease our expense. I wouldn't dwell on it too terribly much. When we do the homework, you actually see how it affects and brings down the interest rate or increases the interest rate. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just remember, discounts increase interest expense, premiums decrease. Then there's 2 methods of bond amortization. The straight line, where we just divide it out by the number of periods, or the effective interest, where we take the interest expense and base it on the carrying value of the bonds, and it changes each period. So it's a little more complicated because you have to multiply on each step, but it's not hard. It's just like the amortization table that we just did a couple slides ago. So when we go through the homework, I take you step by step through it. For the journal entries, I gave you a journal entry cheat sheet with Module 1 lecture, or 13.1, and I would refer to that often and when you're doing the journal entries, but the journal entries are probably the easiest part of this. You can quickly memorize them just because they are very predictable, and like I said, use the cheat sheet. It helps you keep it straight. The first part of the homework, exercises 1 through 6, so Module 13.1 and 13.2 are going to take you the longest. 7 through 11 are quite easy. And they're not, well, take that back. They're not super, they are easy. They're on the journal entries, and the journal entries I think you'll find are a lot quicker. How about them? So the effective interest, I refer to these when we do our homework quite a bit. It's actually, I think, slides 22 and 23. But for example, a company issued a 5-year, $100,000 loan with a stated rate of 5% when the market rate was 4%. So their interest rate was higher than what the market was, so they sold it for a premium. So the bond was issued at a premium for 104,460. So they sold it for more than the actual bond. So they took out a loan for 104,000, and people paid 104,460 to have that loan. So you would pay them the $100,000 because you were going to pay them 5%, and right now in the market they're only getting 4%. So the amount of the premium is 4,460, which will be amortized over the life of the bond. So we take this over amount, this 4,460, and we break it up and spread it over the life of the loan. Because it was a premium, it's actually going to lower the interest amount. So that's really all I'm going to park on, just because as you do the homework, it'll make way more sense. I promise, as you're actually like seeing it happen, it will make sense. But you'll probably refer, I know I do on the homework when I'm showing you each of these little cheats telling you what you do in each category is very helpful. This is just a T account presentation of bond issues. So this is like each little account it listed out how each transaction goes. You can study that if that's helpful for you. For 13.9, it's an amortization of a premium. So we're spreading out that premium throughout the life, and it reduces the carrying value. So you can see the carrying value of this one. So this is the same problem. We had 104,460. That's what we sold it for. So we need to reduce that down over the life so we get at 100,000 the final carrying value. So premiums work to reduce the carrying value. Now on a discount, we sold it for less. So we sold it for 91,800, and we're trying to work up to what the value was of 100,000. So we're actually increasing this carrying value each time we go through the period. So pay attention when we do our homework. I refer to these slides. I would actually almost recommend you print out slides 22 and 23 from the PowerPoint, just because they are that helpful when you're doing these bond problems. When we talk about bonds, I believe I talked about it in 13.1, but just to go over it again, when the stated rate, or the interest rate on the bond, is bigger than the market rate, so I can go out into the market and I can get bonds all day long for 4%, but my bond is selling for 5%, my stated rate is higher, so the bond will be issued at a premium. People will be willing to pay me more for that bond because it is more valuable. Likewise, if my interest rate is 4% and right now everybody else is paying 5%, people aren't going to be as willing to buy my bond. So I'm probably going to have to sell it for less than, for less than what the bond is. So a $100,000 bond, I'm probably going to only sell for $95,000 because people aren't going to want it as much.